Hey guys, Sean here. Today, Luke and I are back with another tier list. Today we'll be ranking the best decks in the Albaz lore. This will be part of a series where we rank all of the lore decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! So it's going to be a lot of fun. But let's begin with one of the most popular lore decks and archetypes, Albaz. So we have a few tiers here. We have
Branded Beast, Aluber, I hardly know her, Sprite or 7-Up, Try Harder, and Fallen from Grace.
Let's begin with your boy, Fallen of Albaz. Now, unfortunately, he's not really a deck. I'm kind of counting here, like, Fallen of Albaz himself and kind of like his retrains. So, like, Albaz the Ashen and stuff like that. And even, like, cards that count as Albaz. So, like, the Albion main deck guy. They're okay. Not really a deck. Of course, so many cards mention him. But I don't want to include all of them. Like, even if we include a few of them, they're great cards and all. Really good in, like, a branded deck. But we have a branded category, and that would be including like all of the branded cards. So it's kind of hard to rank him like fairly. He's pivotal to branded strategies, but of course there is no such thing as a branded deck. I think Albaz as a deck is like really cool lore-wise. He's like a dragon guy, you know, he fuses with Aluber and stuff, and like their kind of confrontation is pretty cool throughout like the lore of the archetypes. So I think it's cool in that regard, and I do want to include like the actual lore in like our rankings here. I don't want it to just be how good the deck is like in the meta, but you know, we'll put him here just basically for the fact that he doesn't really have a deck of his own.
Yeah, this is a classic case of the main character not being as interesting as a side character, so he's definitely in Try Harder.
Next up, we have Dogmatica. Dogmatica is really cool, but it would be about here like compared to the other decks in terms of like power level. Dogmatica is a full deck, unlike Albaz. It's like a ritual focused deck, and its main gimmick is locking you out of the extra deck. So a lot of cards are really powerful, but they're kind of like toned down by the fact that you cannot special summon from the extra deck. You have cards like Nadir's Servant that like dump a card from the extra deck to search. So you're going +1, and you're dumping a card from the extra deck, which can either get you more pluses or pop cards in the field if you dump cards like Entus. Of course, it's really good in like a ritual deck because, you know, they don't need the extra deck. So it does work pretty well. Ecclesia's like basically a free special summon, and it gives you a search. Fleur-de-Lis kind of like boosts all your guys, and it can be like a quick effect negate, which is really cool. Of course, Dogmatica Punishment was an insane card when it came out. Dumping a card from the extra deck to the grave to send a card in the field with less attack than that monster to the grave. That card was insane when it came out. Not only being able to like remove a card in the field, but just being able to dump certain cards from the extra deck to the grave was just insane, and you could just run a little Dogmatica engine in so many different decks. The aesthetic is really cool, very like kind of Dark Souls-y, which I really love. I think it's super cool. They're all kind of knights, like holy knights, so I think it's awesome. Of course, Ecclesia herself is a really iconic character in all of the Albaz lore, and you know, Ecclesia herself has a lot of different incarnations in different decks here. She turns into Blazing Cortesia and like Quem, so those kind of tie into like the Despia lore and stuff like that. So really super cool. Unfortunately, the deck is not like as good as some of the other decks, but it's just a really cool archetype.
Yeah, it definitely belongs in the middle of the road with Sprite or 7-Up, just because that Dogmatica as its own sort of deck can be quite impressive, but it kind of got a little bit power crept right now, so it's easy enough to beat when you're comparing it to regular meta decks. But what I really like about it is the fact you can kind of splash it as an engine into a lot of different things. I had this as an engine into a few of my different decks, one deck being Invoked, which I think was probably one of the most fun I had, was with the Invoke Dogmatica engine. You basically do all your Invoke stuff first, and then you're able to do the Dogmatica stuff, because it doesn't lock you completely out of the extra deck, only after you activate certain effective cards, like Nadir's Servant. And I also really liked using it as a small little engine in the likes of Fire King, just because I found it to be really fun, especially when you're playing it along the lines of Dogmatica Maximus. Maximus can get you a ton of advantage if you are able to special summon him out. A small little engine that I ran with Dogmatica in Fire King was 3 copies of Nadir's Servant, 1 Maximus, and 1 Fleur-de-Lis. What I really liked was you can activate Nadir's Servant, you can dump Garua to search out your Maximus, Garua will get you a draw, then what you can do is banish that Garua to special Maximus, then Maximus is able to dump you 2 cards from your extra deck and 2 cards from your opponent's extra deck to the graveyard. So not only is that good at seeing what your opponent's playing, but also it can get you a ton of advantage as well. I really liked it, I think it's pretty cool. So I definitely think, as much as I like the engine itself, it's not the most powerful out there, so definitely middle of the road with Sprite or 7-Up.
Next up, we have Despia. Now, for the purposes of like this list, Ignore the fact that Aluber can search branded fusion. This is purely Despia. So like your Despian Tragedy, your Ad Libitum, all those like main deck Despia guys, and kind of like the Despia monsters from the extra deck. And even Quem, because that counts as a Despia monster. So it's really cool. This is like, these three monsters here are kind of like the main characters of the Albaz lore. And Aluber even ties into like the Bestials later on. And even if you look at Despia as its own thing, they're all like dark fairies, which are really cool. They're a really cool like kind of archetype. Have cool synergy with stuff like Dark Lords and stuff like that if you wanted to build a Dark Lord Despia deck. Some of their fusion monsters are really cool. Despia and Queritus saw a bit of play when Despia first came out. Being able to lower the attack of all of your opponent's non-fusion monsters was really, really good. And then Proskinian, a bit harder to go into, but you'd sometimes see it, at least on Master Level every now and then, you'll see Proskinian. It's a decent super poly target and is able to like steal stuff from the grave, which is really, really cool. It can burn your opponent as well. So they're just like really cool cards. It's unfortunate that you don't get to see them too much just because of the fact that if you're playing Aluber and like some Despia stuff, you're playing it in like a branded deck. But even like pure branded on its own is like unique and has some really cool cards that you just like wouldn't see if you're, playing a pure branded deck. So I think it's really cool. If we're talking about pure Dogmatica versus pure Despia, I think like you'd almost want to swap these. I think pure Dogmatica is like a lot better than pure Despia, but I think, they're about even in how cool they are.
Really, I quite like Despia a lot. One thing I really like about Despia is that they actually rely on fusion monsters, and I just think fusion monsters are just so easy to bring out now, and considering that you can take advantage of fusion monsters in Despia first, rather than with like Dogmatica kind of taking out the extra deck altogether. One thing I really like about Despia is I really like their field spell, Despia Theater the Branded, because I like field spells that are able to fusion summon. I just think that's really, really cool. So for Despia Theater the Branded, it has the effect that during your main phase, you can fusion summon one level 8 or higher fusion monster from your X deck, using monsters from your hand or field as material. So what I think is really great about that is that it's an in-archetype card, however, it doesn't force you to fusion summon archetype specific fusion monsters. It just needs to be level 8 or higher, which I think is pretty cool. But not only that, I think this card is very good because also it's another effect where if a face-up non-fusion fairy monster you control leaves the field by opponent's card effect or is destroyed a battle, you can target one level 8 or higher fusion monster in your graveyard and special summon it. So it has a nice little bit of recycling. I think recovery is probably a little bit better with Despia than it is with Dogmatica. I just find with Dogmatica, as soon as the monsters are outed, they're outed, whereas with the likes of these Despia cards, they might just be a little bit better. And I also find Dogmatica is very much better as an engine, so if you want to put Dogmatica up into that tier list of Lubra hardly nowhere, I would agree with you, but I would still put Despia just inching ahead of them a little bit.
Next up, we have Tri-Brigade. I think Tri-Brigade is really cool. I think it probably belongs to be up here. If we're talking about, again, like a pure deck, I think Tri-Brigade is really good on its own, at least compared to these other decks. It's a deck focusing on Beast, Beast Warrior, and Wing Beast monsters, and it's a link summoning deck. Basically, the effect of all of your main deck Tri-Brigade monsters is that you can banish Beast, Beast Warrior, or Wing Beast monsters from your graveyard as material for your link monsters, which is really, really cool. It does lock you into Beast, Beast Warrior, and Wing Beast link monsters, but still, it's super cool. They have some really strong cards, like Tri-Brigade Shirig is just a non-target banish, which is crazy, and you can summon it off of your Tri-Brigade Revolt, which is a trap card that can just let you summon it on your opponent's turn, just non-target banish anything, which is crazy. Shirig even has the effect where it can add you like a Beast or a Wing Beast monster from deck to hand, so you can add stuff like DD Crow, which is really, really cool. It has synergy with like other, Beast, Beast Warrior, and Wing Beast decks. Decks like Gladiator Beast can, really use a little Tri-Brigade engine to really kind of like boost their ceiling. Even stuff like Fire King and Tri-Brigade have really good synergy, so I just think it's a really cool deck. I love the gimmick, I love the aesthetic, I just think it's awesome.
Yeah, Tri-Brigade is pretty good because when it comes to link climbing decks, one problem with it is just with most of those link climbing decks is the fact that you're always trying to get bodies on the field, but with Tri-Brigade, it's just a whole lot easier because you're able to banish monsters from your graveyard instead in order to go for the link rating, which of course is just really, really good. And also the deck is fairly consistent as well, where a lot of your cards are actually starters, of course Fractal being the best starter and stuff like that, but also some good cards like Kiras are also fairly good. There's a very straightforward line with Tri-Brigade as well, in the sense that you can dump them in a certain order like Kate and Nerval and everything. I think it's pretty good. I like the fact you're able to mix it with Fire King as well, and then you can take advantage of some more generic cards such as Fire Formation Tenki. So yeah, it's still a very, very good deck. Probably when we're looking at it in context of all the other decks we're going to talk about, it probably does belong to be top tier with Branded Beast. So yeah, definitely a very, very solid deck.
Next up we have Branded. Now we're counting like the Branded archetype, so meaning all the spells and traps that have Branded in the name, but we're not counting stuff like, you know, Aluber to search them and all that. We're also counting maybe like the fusion monsters, so like Albion, Lubellion, like the fusion monsters, Mirror Jade and all that. So I understand it's kind of awkward, but if we're going to talk about like Branded as kind of like a deck or an archetype, I think this is like the best way to talk about it. You could even include like Albaz in there if you wanted to. But yeah, Branded's really good. Branded Fusion is a game warping card. It's like Shaddoll Fusion but on crack. Easily searchable. Just dumps 2 cards from deck to grave basically for free. And it gives you so much advantage. It's just a 1 card like Mirror Jade, which is an insanely strong boss monster. Being able to send a card from your extra deck to the grave as cost to banish a monster on the field, non-targeting, is just amazing. And then once Mirror Jade leaves the field, you can just blow up your opponent's board during the end phase, which is really hard to play around. Even your Albion and your Lubellion are just crazy cards for being able to fusion and summon more cards. Albion being able to shuffle material from the banish zone and grave into the deck to fusion summon is just really, really good. And then Lubellion just banishing from the grave. They're just really good cards for like kind of going into each other. Of course, you even have stuff like Branded Regained and stuff like that. Branded in Red. Branded Lost is another really good one. So they're all really good. I can see it being put down here just because it's not like its own kind of pure deck. It really isn't like much of a deck besides the spells and traps. You'd really have to run it with like cards that can search them, with Albaz of course. But you know, just because, you know, it's Branded, it's cool, they're very strong cards, we'll just put it here.
I really like Branded. I think it's a really fun deck to learn. I will say I think it is very strong. I actually would keep it in the top tier because with Branded they just have such good recovery as well. The fact that you're able to set cards like Branded in Red and stuff like that and basically get like a bunch of advantage during the end phase, I think is something to not overlook. I think Branded as a deck in itself, if you're not including with all the Despia stuff and everything, it obviously isn't the strongest, but I still think it's very, very powerful. I mean, there's no other deck here that's main combo pieces limited right now, so I definitely think Branded deserves to be up there in Branded Beast.
Next up, Sword Soul, probably one of the best decks on this list. Even if you're ignoring like Sword Soul Tenji, Sword Soul on its own is just really, really good. Just a great synchro deck. It was one of the best decks in the meta when it came out. They have some really strong synchro monsters. Xixiao is just a really good like quick effect negate. And can even search you a card, which is just crazy. And Changying is just a really cool like generic synchro 10. Of course really good in Sword Soul, but really good in other decks as well. Gains attack for each banished card, and then whenever a card is banished, it can just non-target banish a card on the field and in your opponent's grave, which is just really good disruption. They're all like worm monsters, so they have really good synergy with stuff like Tenyi and other worm decks. They can search like the arch nemesis like Protoss and stuff like that. So just a very, very strong deck. The lore is cool enough as well. It doesn't mesh too much into like the main kind of like Albaz Ecclesia stuff, but it more so kind of revolves around the Ice Jades. But overall it's just really cool. The design is awesome. They're just like the souls of swords. Like that's just so cool. Like there's nothing else cooler than the souls of swords. So yeah, I think it's one of the best decks on this list.
Definitely. Another thing is that the deck is very balanced. It's not like, although it is powerful, it's not broken to the point where you actually hate playing against it. It is definitely one of the most well-balanced decks out there. Not overly broken, but also not too weak as well. It's definitely something that you'd want to be wary about when you're playing against it, because it can really pop off. So it deserves to be at the top of Branded Beast.
Next up we have Ice Jades. They're not very good. Like I want to put them down here, but like Albaz is just, you know, he's not really a deck. Like in fairness, we should do it like this.
Yeah, probably.
Albaz should be down here. Ice Jades, like they function. You know, they are a deck. They're another kind of synchro water deck, and they kind of revolve more around floodgates. It's a continuous spell where if you have like an Ice Jade monster on field and their field spell, your opponent can activate the effect of special summon monsters to turn their special summoned. And like, yeah, that sounds like really annoying floodgate, but it like has so much setup. You need to have 2 specific cards in the field for a floodgate that only lasts 1 turn. it's not the best. So much effort for just such little payoff. They have a decent Synchro 10, to be honest. It's another generic Synchro 10 that can just fit into a few decks. Whenever your opponent activates card or effect in response to your card or effects, you can banish that card, which is pretty strong in certain decks. But overall, there's nothing so remarkable about Ice Jades. Their aesthetic is really cool, but that's really about it. I think they need to try harder.
Yeah, honestly, Ice Jades aren't the greatest. I do think that they do have some fairly good cards with Ice Jade Tremora is like a nice generic extender for like water decks and the likes. But in terms of the deck itself, it's just not really all that powerful. It can do some stuff, but it just takes a lot of setup. And as you say, it's just for a floodgate that only lasts one turn. If it was a consistent floodgate, then maybe it might be a heavier contender. But then it would just make people hate the deck even more because it's a floodgate deck. No one likes that. So yeah, I think they're just caught in a weird area right now. They're not too great. Maybe with some more support further down the line, they could get a little bit better, but they definitely need to stay in try harder.
Next up, we have Sprites, and I know I was singing the praises of Sword Soul, but Sprites is definitely the best deck on this list. Pure Sprites is an insane deck. Pure Sprites were like the next best thing to Tier when Tier was at full power. Sprites are a insanely strong deck. It has so many different versions, like you have like Tri-Brigade Sprite, you have Live Twin Sprite, Runic Sprite, Ice Bearer Sprite, like there's so many different Sprite versions, but one of the best Sprite versions is just Pure Sprite. This deck is so good. It revolves around level 2 monsters, so pretty much any deck that has level 2 monsters can use Sprites to some extent. All of your Sprite monsters can special summon themselves if you control another level or link or rank 2 monster on the field, and then they all have different effects. Of course, you have Gigantic Sprite, which is an insanely good boss monster that can just special summon any level 2 from your deck, and then it locks you and your opponent from special summoning monsters that are level 2 or higher, meaning it turns off Bestials and Nibiru, which is just insane. Let's not forget Sprite Elf, who is banned in TCG for good reason, being a very easy to summon Link 2 monster that can just revive a level 2 monster from your graveyard, and if your opponent controls a monster, it can revive a Link 2, which is just insanity. Sprites are crazy. Sprites are just a fantastic deck. Next up we have Spriggans. I think Spriggans find a nice home right here. They are okay. They're like a Fire Machine deck, which I think is really cool. There's not many Fire Machine decks. They're an Xyz focus deck. They have like a lot of different gimmicks. There's no like one overarching gimmick for Spriggans. They have a lot of different gimmicks. One of the cool ones is related to zones. One of their Xyz, Exablower, can like target a zone on the field, and then it can like destroy kind of spells and traps in the zones adjacent to that zone, which is really cool. They have a trap card that does something similar. Their field spell just special summons a Spriggans Xyz for free, which you can just rank up into like your gigantic champion Sargus, which can search any Spriggans card, which is crazy because it can search your Tally-Ho, and Tally-Ho is pretty much Soul Charge for Spriggans. The deck has a lot of crazy stuff in it, which is just like really funny for such a bad deck. It's a fun like gimmicky Xyz deck, and I really like it, but just unfortunately it's just not that good. But I enjoy it. I think it's very silly.
Yeah, the funny thing about Spriggans is the fact that, honestly, I think if I went up against this deck, I would probably lose because I wouldn't know what they are doing. There are just so many different things that they can go down, which I think is really, really funny. Another thing I really like about them is how well they kind of bridge into other decks on this list as well, because they have a very easy like rank 4 to go into Mirror Maker. Then you're able to use Mirror Maker as material to rank up into Sargus, and then Sargus is able to search you a Therian monster, which is going to be your Regulus. And honestly, it's just really, really cool that they can do that. So I just think it's really cool, and the fact that they can do a bunch of different things I think is very interesting. Of course, they're not as good as the likes of Sprite or anything like that, but I think it's an interesting deck. Definitely middle of the road. I think it can be a little bit overlooked, but hey, maybe they might get better support in the future and it'll be tier 1. Who knows?
Next up, we have Tyrion. Tyrion are notable for having like 1 or 2 extremely strong cards that can fit into a lot of different decks. Of course, Regulus fits into pretty much any machine deck, as it's just an Omni Negate that just needs you to have any machine monster in your graveyard. Even Lily Berea is seen in plant decks as a way to kind of go into your Regulus, which is really cool, and it's just a really good extender in plant decks. Other than those two, Tyrion are not like that good of a deck. Their gimmick is essentially They can all be special summoned from your hand by equipping a Tyrion monster in your graveyard to that monster, and then that Tyrion monster on the field will gain the effects of the monster equipped to it, which is a really, really cool gimmick. They look really cool. They're big, like, high level guys. They have like really high attack, high level monsters, and that's kind of where the problem lies. They're hard to really summon on their own. You really need a way to get one engraved to be able to summon one of your Tyrion monsters. And while they are strong, a lot of them just don't really do anything to help the strategy. Lily Beret is a great searcher, and of course Tyrion King Regulus is just a great Omni-Negate, but they need more cards, to be honest. They need more like good cards to really facilitate what they're going for. I love the gimmick, and of course the battle between Sargus and Regulus is the best battle in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! So I think they're pretty cool, but again, they probably go in the middle, a bit below Spriggans, because Spriggans just function as a pure deck a bit better than Tyrion. And finally, let's talk about Bestials. Now, I know Bestials are not really a full deck, but their meta impact is so insane that I really think they belong at least in the second highest tier. Bestials are just really, really strong. Their gimmick is that they target light or dark monsters in the graveyard, banish them to special summon themselves. And this is a quick effect if your opponent controls a monster. So they're really like meta defining hand traps. They were insanely good they basically ended the tier format before tier was banned pretty much. And they all have really strong effects on top of that. So of course Magnamut limited to 1 will just search you any dragon monster during the end phase, which is just crazy. Druiswurm, when it's sent to grave, will just send one special summon monster your opponent controls to grave, which is fantastic removal, which is really easily accessible. Sarnir, when it's sent to grave, is able to dump any branded spell trap or bestial monster, which can set up a lot of really good stuff. It's really good in like branded itself. Baldrake can just banish one of your opponent's extract monsters, which is really cool. Lubellion, of course, being the best one. Discard it from your hand to search any bestial, and then you can just special summon it from your hand or grave by tributating a level 6 or higher Dark Dragon, and then it can just place a branded spell trap directly from your deck face up on your field. This card on its own is just insane. You even have cards like Branded Beast, which are cool. Tribute one of your bestial monsters to pop a card in the field. Etude the Branded is a really funny trap card. Lets you quick synchro on your opponent's turn, and while you control a bestial monster, any monster sent to your opponent's graveyard for any like material for like a link or a fusion or anything is just banished instead, which is really, really funny. Like, I think it's just a hilarious card. And of course we have the bestial Aluber, which is like the final form of Aluber in like the lore. He's not very good, but it's cool lore wise. So yeah, I think bestials are just like fantastic, not as their own deck, kind of as their own deck if you're playing something like Fiendsmith Bestial or like Bestial Control, but yeah, as their own like kind of pure archetype, pure deck. They're really cool, but there's just not enough cards to be a full deck.
You know, I think there might have been if they didn't keep hitting it. I mean, Magnamut's at 1 right now, and Druid's at 1 right now, but Bestial Control was actually very, very good. I think that was like a very well-regarded deck. I also had a very high ceiling in the sense that it didn't really run a whole lot of bricks, especially considering if the meta is consistent mostly of light and dark decks, which most of the time, let's be real, that's basically a lot of the metas we come across, except for fire format, of course. But yeah, I do think Bestials can be a good deck on their own. I know they are played best as an engine with other decks and stuff like that, but when it comes to them as their own, they're very, very powerful, so definitely deserve to be in Aluber. I hardly know her.
Alright, so that's it for the tier list. Let us know what you think in the comments, and definitely let us know which tier list you want to see next. There's a bunch of different lore archetypes you want to talk about. Stuff like Diabellstar, stuff like World Legacy. There's a bunch to talk about, so let us know which one you want to see next. If you want to build any of these decks in real life, we do have a TCG player affiliate link in the description. If you use that link to buy cards, you'll be directly supporting the channel and helping us keep up the content. If you also want to support the channel, make sure you consider becoming a member. Members get access to our videos as soon as we make them. Shoutouts to our current members, Kieran Thompson, Roneel, Master Jojo TCG, John Cran, and Vex. We really appreciate the support, so thanks so much. And again, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more tier lists.